Hi guys, beautiful day today. Well, it looks beautiful, but actually it's really cold today. It's about 9 degrees, but that's not going to stop us from giving you guys another review of a beautiful phone that I got sent out. This time is a HTC 9S. So if you want to find out whether you actually need to spend £1,000 to get a decent phone, stay tuned. Shout out to Nortelco, they were nice to send that out to me, particularly Stuart. Cheers Stuart, you're a star. So, whenever you're buying a new smartphone, the first thing you look at is specs. So, often buying the phone is driven by whatever specs it has. So, I'm going to read these specs out to you really quickly because actually, on paper, it sounds amazing. So, display, 5-inch display. Processor, 8-core, a 1 GHz 8-core processor, wow. Front-facing camera, 5 megapixel. Those selfies are going to look great. 3 gig of RAM. It's got Android Marshmallow with HTC Sense UI. The rear-facing camera is a 13 megapixel. That's better than the iPhone apparently. The weight is about 150 grams and it's 2,300 millihour amp battery. So all of these translate to a really pretty impressive handset. But let's have a look at the actual handset itself. Let's start with first the actual look of it, its features in the physical side of things. Looking at the handset in this matte black, it just looks remarkably like the iPhone. Yeah, I think if you don't like iPhones, and probably styling wise this isn't going to be one for you, but I personally think that that's a really good move because it's never a bad idea to have a phone that looks far better up the market than what you actually paid for. People will look at it and think, oh look, that's a new iPhone, until they see the HTC sign. But let's move on and see what actually other things we see here. So on the right hand side here is a nicely placed power button with some texture, so you'll know exactly what you're looking at without looking, ironically there. Volume rocker. I think they should have been able to make it more obvious what up and down is from the button itself, because there's no cut or nothing like that on it. On the screen you have the actual fingerprint reader, which, can I just say, it's absolutely brilliant. It actually works really well, probably as good as an iPhone if I must be honest. You know, as you can see on the side here we have a tray for micro SD card, which by the way guys, you don't get that very often nowadays, but you can now go out there and buy a SD card up to 2 terabytes and it will support it. And then you have the tray for the micro nano SIM that goes in there as well. Bottom of the phone is pretty again familiar. USB, micro USB, mic, 3.5mm headphone jack. Don't have one of those on the iPhone 7, so if you feel that that's the most important thing in the world, then yeah, you might want to get that. And speaker grill, arranged slightly different than what the iPhone is, but again canonly similar. It's not a one-piece unibody aluminium like the iPhone, and apologies for making all of these references back to the iPhone, but you just can't get away from it. The phone is just like, it's like they looked at the iPhone and thought, yeah, we're going to copy that. But then again, the HTC 9 is exactly the same thing, and this is just this smaller brother. Rear-facing camera, single LED tone flash, mic, and that wraps up what the phone looks like. So have a look at these closer photos of the phone and its glory, nice and clean, so you can make your mind up whether you like it or not. So the other big feature that you look for in a smartphone is the camera, and you'll be asking yourself, surely with a 5 megapixel front-facing camera, the iPhone was with one of those for years and it worked just fine. And a rear-facing 13 megapixel camera, again, this is 1 megapixel better than the iPhone 7. So surely it's got to take better pictures. So what I've done is I've put my iPhone 7 Plus and footage taken from this side by side. So if you have a look at it now, you can clearly see the detail of the picture is nowhere near as bumpy. The colors are not as good. You can also see that the front-facing camera looks like it's doing a really good job, but actually you're losing a lot of detail. The iPhone in this case has a wider angle, so you can capture more people in your camera. the video footage itself is nowhere near as good. And also, while we're talking about video footage, let's just talk about actual specs. With a smartphone like the iPhone, you can go all the way up to 4K resolutions. On this HTC, you're only going to go up to 1080 at 30 frames per second. It doesn't even do 60. One of the things I also noticed, which I want to cover with you guys on the camera app, is when you change the resolutions, you don't have as much megapixels available to you. When a view angle of 4:3 or 4:9, you got the full whack, then you change it to 16:9 and that number decreases. I guess it's doable, but if taking pictures and selfies for your Instagram account is your main purpose, then this camera just doesn't do the job. Right, so I buy a HTC mainly because I want to hear the sound. I mean, HTC have been well known for the boom sound. Back on the other phones I had the front-facing camera. Well, you still have the software available on this phone, so if you have HTC's proprietary headphones or maybe some Beats, it'll sound great. However, the speaker from the handset itself is tinny and probably on par with some of the Samsungs that you have out there, but it's not going to be a blow your socks away kind of experience. What's the other one thing that is really important to have on a smartphone nowadays? And that is not have to carry a charger with you. But I'm afraid on this one you're probably going to have to, because although it has a 2300 mAh battery, its battery life isn't actually all that great. What it does do to kind of fight that is actually have a really quick, fast charge time. I mean, on a good charger, it'll take you an hour and a half to charge it to fully, which is good. But again, bear that in mind when you're walking around with this. You're probably going to have to quickly jump into the next power outlet and juice it up. So the screen, again, with all of these Android devices, you know, going all the way up to 4K screens like the Sony Xperia, that's an area where this phone doesn't push the boundaries. I'm not sure whether it's to keep the performance snappy or not, but this is actually just a 720p screen. It's nice, it looks sharp enough, and you probably are not going to really care too much about that. However, what you will care about is the actual colors and the brightness of it. This thing isn't bright at all. I mean, here you are about 50% brightness, and I'm struggling to see it already. I mean, of course you can run it higher, but that's going to impact the battery massively. So bear that in mind when you're looking at this phone. If the screen is, again, priority, you might want to look somewhere else. Right, for anyone that's used the HTC before, there's no surprises here. It's the HTC UI. Me personally, being an iPhone lover, I like the minimalistic thing. This is probably second favorite to actually the Google Pixel's no frills Android experience. It's snappy because this obviously, as you know, is running an 8-core processor, which the performance is not amazing, but it's adequate for what you're getting. I suppose this is not, you know, the price of an iPhone, which is probably about half the price, actually, to be fair. In fact, let's talk about price right now. This is actually under £400 brand new. That's like £400 less than an iPhone. And is it half as good as an iPhone? Well, in my opinion, it's probably about half as good as an iPhone, to be fair with you. But if you're giving this to a teen who is paying £10 a month on a contract, who you don't want to be spending £50 for a brand new iPhone, it's bang on the money. You can't go wrong. And you know what? He's going to look cool with his mates because of the iPhone just changed style. I was going to complain about having a cheaper phone that looks like a really premium handset. That's not. Shut up! Oh, Unipiece. And a 2,300 millihour blah, 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 big battery.